This morning is always a little bittersweet for me with our seniors, right? But it's also always fun to kind of think back to when they started in our youth group and what was going on. Some of them have started recently, right? Some of them, like Haley's been with us for maybe a year now, maybe not. I don't think it's been quite that long, maybe. But others of them were here when I was still trying to figure out what it meant to be a youth pastor 6 years ago, as I was trying to do this thing on my own for the first time. And as I was reflecting on that, sometime in the midst of that, I recognized there were seasons of life where I felt like I was giving God the wrong thing. You been there before? I recognize this in my boys now. Isaiah, who is our 4-year-old, we've been trying to teach him, to stay in his own bed, to do those kind of things, right? As a kid, we don't want him coming in at 3 a.m. and waking me up, right? And so we've been trying to teach him some of those things. And so in that teaching moment for him, one of the most effective ways for us to teach him is to take stuff away. He's one of those kids, right? Timeout doesn't work. Threats don't work, right? Raising my voice, he laughs when I yell, right? So it doesn't work. And so for him, it's like if I take away his toy, it's like the end of the world, right? And so we started this thing where if he came into our room at night, he woke us up at night, we would take away one of his toys. And he's also in this phase where he likes to bargain, right? And so he has a lot of toys. And so he's like, well, which toy are you going to take away, right? Because if it's a toy I don't care about, then I'll come into your room, right? I'm going to come in. But if it's one that I like, I might not, right? And so he loves Voltron. How many know what Voltron is? Some of you guys are like, yeah, I used to know. It's coming back, right? So there's a new Voltron. If you don't know what it is, it's like these 5 massive lions that people use to guard the universe. But they form into this one defender whose name is Voltron. So it's like 5 of these pieces come together. It's pretty awesome. You can watch it on Netflix for free. So this is Voltron. And so he, for his birthday, got all of the lions, which assemble together and make Voltron, and it's like this big, okay? And it talks once they're all assembled, and it does cool stuff, and it's like the thing. And it was especially the thing around his birthday. And so we told him, we're like, hey, if you get out of your bed, we're going to take away a lion. And so his question was, which lion, right? Because depending on which lion, again, is important. So his all-time favorite lion is the red one, right? And so if we were going to take the red one, it was going to be game over. But they all assemble to the black one. So if he doesn't have the black one, he can't put any of them together, right? So he's like, will you take the blue one? I was like, no, I'll take the red one, right? We're going to go for the one that's right. And so he would keep trying to give us something else, right? So he stays awake the first night, he comes into our room, and so we're like, dude, go get a lion, we're going to take it away. Go get the lion we told you we were going to take first. And so he comes out with the yellow one, right? So he says, this is the one, right? No, dude. Go get the red one. Okay. Comes out with the green one. This one? No. Go get the red one. Have you ever done that with God before? We don't think that we do, but I think that we do. Probably more often than we would like to admit, right? And so I remember as I was becoming the youth pastor and wrestled with God on where we should be, where I should go, and what that looked like, and we came to youth group. There was a lot of things that I felt like I was wrestling with God on, I have to do this, right? And one of those was music, right? So my intern job, most of my interning was doing the music for youth group. I didn't really do a lot of teaching when I was interning. And so I was like, I just have to keep doing that, right? That's the thing. And so I would hold on to that, and I have to do music and I have to speak. And I remember there was a Wednesday night where I'm just stressed out, right? And I'm trying to bring students into worship, and so I'm trying to teach students how to play cajon, as we're trying to practice for the service. And so I'm trying to teach and not do this and try to play, but then also get ready to preach. And so I remember just wrestling with God, being like, God, how am I supposed to do all this stuff all the time? And at the time, we had split high school and junior high. And so we were doing separate life groups, we were doing separate worship services. So I was doing 4 services a week. And I was like, God, I can't, right? My mind's going to explode. It was super hard. And I remember just sitting one day wrestling with God, being like, God, I can't do all this stuff. And he's like, I didn't give you all this stuff. You're giving me the wrong thing. I want you to teach. You don't need this part. And I was like, what? Right? 3 years of my life is here. This is the good stuff. This is what I love, right? I love to sing, and I don't really love to sing, but I love to worship, right? And I remember him just saying, no, this isn't what I called you to do. I called you to teach. I called you to preach. And so that's what I want you to do. That's where I want you to put your effort. I want you to do less of this. And And I remember just trying to figure that out. I'm still not great at figuring that out. The balance of doing that and giving it away and trying to figure out where is God in the midst of that. And as we've walked through this series on the unexpected, a week ago we read Psalm 50. And as we were reading that psalm, there's some things in it I recognized where they were giving God a little bit of the wrong thing, right? And in that psalm, in the first half, it's talking about the sacrifices that they were doing. And they were sacrificing these animals and these burnt offerings to God, and God saying, like, those are already my animals, right? Those are already I don't need you to kill them. They're there. They're mine. I could do that if I wanted to, right? And so he says, hey, that's not what I want. I want you to just thank me for those things, right? I want an offering of thanks for those things. I want you to do something a little bit different. And as I was reading this psalm, at the beginning of the psalm, it says a psalm of, if you want to go there, Psalm 50. And at the beginning of the psalm, it has like the title of who wrote it, right? And so it says a psalm of Asaph. That's how I'm going to say it. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's how I'm going to do it. And every time it does that, right, it writes those on there. I'm like, okay, who is that guy, right? Because it's not David, and so I want to know, right? And so I started looking into Asaph a little bit, and he's kind of like a pastor, right? He's in charge of the ministry of the church in David. In 1 Chronicles 16, he calls Asaph to him, and he says, I want to offer this thanks offering to God. I want us to praise and thank God for what he's done, right? The burnt offerings are done. The sacrifices are done. Now we're just going to offer a praise offering to God. We're going to just do thanks. And so he grabs Asaph, it says, and his relatives, right? It's like a family thing. So, my family fits with this. We're just going to all come and worship and do stuff, right? And so they come and they give this thank offering. And so then at the end of that chapter, it says that he leaves him there to continue this ministry of offering thanks to God. And so that's who Asaph and his family are. And so they begin this thank offering to God. And as I was reading through this, there's some things that I think for us that we do this well, right? I think sometimes it's easier for us to offer the thank offerings, right? When things are good and I got stuff to thank God for, I can offer those up, right? When things aren't so great, when it's hard, I don't know if I always thank God for those times, right? At least not in the moment. And so they're offering this to God. And so God, he's told them that he doesn't want the sacrifices and all those things, that those things are his. And so instead, he says, offer this thank offering to God in verse 14. So we'll read that together. Sacrifice the thank offering to God and pray our vows to the Most High. And pay our vows to the Most High. Call on me in a day of trouble. I will rescue you, and you will honor me. And so within this, right, this first part of that, the first line we've talked about, just offering that thank offering to God. What does it mean for us to pay our vows to the Most High, right? I read that, I was like, that's weird. And in one translation, it says to keep our promises to God, right? To keep our oaths that we make with God. To follow through with what we tell God we're going to do, right? This is another thing I've learned with my boys. If I don't follow through with what I was going to do, right, they're just going to keep doing what I don't want them to do, right? And in the same way, right, we as we tell God to do something, as we say, God, we're going to do this, we're going to make this, we're going to take this stand, God, I'm going to do this right here. We got to follow through, right? We got to pay those vows. We got to do what we say we're going to do. We got to walk the walk in the midst of that. And then he said, and part of that is that honesty and integrity that we've kind of talked through, I think, a little bit in this. And then that last part, and call upon me in the day of trouble. Right? Trusting God when things in life are a little difficult. And I loved Natalie's story this morning that you got to hear within that song. She messed up my whole sermon. I had to redo stuff multiple times. That we call upon God in times of trouble, right? I can trust that God will do what? The next line. He will rescue me. There's so many times in my life when things just start going nuts. When things start going in a direction that I don't want them to do. When trouble comes, my first reaction a lot of times is just to wear myself out trying to do everything that I can do first. Right? To the point where now I really need someone to rescue me. Right? Because I'm too tired now. Right? I did everything that I could do. I wore myself out, God. So now you can come rescue me. When instead, how much more, if I had just thanked God for the situation that I was in and called to him and said, okay, you just take me now, man, I would be so much less tired, right? So much less tired. And God will honor that. For me, as I've journeyed through this 6 years of with these students and journeyed through what does life look like in the church, right? And we've walked through a ton of stuff together. They've had just as much trouble in their lives as I've had in mine already. They've seen just as much violence on the news as we have. We live in a nation that doesn't feel like they have a whole lot of hope right now. And yet we come to this place and we sing songs this morning. God, that our hope is in you. Not because of what we can do. Not because of who I am, but God, because of who you are. Our hope is in you and the fact that we know that you love us enough to come down and rescue us. No matter the trouble that we're in, no matter the heartache that we feel, no matter the stuff of life, God comes. And when he comes, I think a lot of times he's asking us, are we given the right thing? And sometimes that takes us asking a question like, God, what do you want from me? That's a dangerous question to ask God, right? What do you want from me? I remember when I started out in drumline my freshman year, we had this drum instructor who was just kind of a crazy old guy. And he would just get in your face and he'd yell a lot. Just one of those guys. And I started late. I was going to do trumpet. Decided I didn't want to play trumpet. I wanted to play drums. And so I switched over. And so I was stuck in like the pit, which is like the mallet instruments and some of the percussion stuff. And I didn't enjoy any of those things, right? So I would sit there and I'd struggle through all of the first half of the semester. And then he comes to me one day and he says, hey, our first bass drummer, top bass drum, has an F in one of her classes and you need to play bass drum. And I was like, cool, I don't know how to play bass drum. Never done that before, right? And he's like, and you also have to march the show. And I was like, we haven't worked on that, right? I haven't done that. And he goes, and it's Thursday, and you need to learn it on Saturday, because we have a show, and it's our biggest show of the year at ASU in their huge stadium. It's not intimidating at all, right? And so I had to learn how to march, I had to learn the music, I had to learn how to play a new instrument, and I had to learn all of the drill formations, which I had never done before, right? In 2 days, and had to perform it live in front of judges and a lot of people, right? And I remember on Friday, the day before, working with him on the field, and I'm trying to do like the marching, right? And I had never marched before, so he's like, dude, get your heels down. And so I'm like marching with my heels down, right? I'm doing this. And then I would go backwards, and I would like leave my heel up. And he's like, no, get on your toes. I was like, you just told me to put my heel down, right? Now you're gonna get my toes. He's like, yeah, backwards on your toes, forwards on your, right? And so he's walking me through stuff. I'm like, dude, I don't get this. And so then I would like finally get the marching stuff down. He's like, dude, you missed a note. I was like, there was a note? What? I'm supposed to be, what? Right? I'm hitting the thing. And I was just so frustrated. I had like music clipped to the bass drum like right in front of my face. And I'm trying to like do all this stuff at once. And I remember looking at him one time and just saying, dude, what do you expect from me, right? What do you really expect? Like, you just give me all this stuff. They had 6 months to do this. I'm getting 2 days, right? What do you want, right? What do you want from me in this moment? I can't give you much more than what I'm giving you. And he looked at me and he said, I want you to do this like it's been your thing your whole life, because I know that you can. Right? This guy that used to yell in my face all the time, just get in my face all the time, spoke that into me and said, no, I know that you can do this, and you don't need more time. You have it, right? You just have to believe in that and do that. And this week, as I was thinking through their journeys, thinking through asking this question, God, what do you want from me? Recognizing that looks different for all 7 of the seniors that were up here. That looked different for me, that looks different for you. And this morning, we've come to a place of worship, and it's good. We've sang songs, and they were good. We've read scripture, and it was good. And yet some of us, we leave this place, and we say, no, God, I gave you Sunday. I got work to do this week. And he's saying, hey, you're giving me the wrong thing. I want you to give me your work. I want you to give me praise in the hardest situation you've ever been in your life. I want you to thank me for walking you through that surgery. That was painful. That was hard. But thank me for getting me through it. I want you to praise me in the middle of one of the tantrums that your kid throws in the middle of a store. It's embarrassing, right? I don't want just a Sunday. That's the wrong thing. It's good to give him Sunday. It's good to come praise him this morning. It's all been good. But this is all we're giving him. We're giving him the wrong thing. So he wants it all. And when we ask him the question, God, what do you want from me? It might be everything. More often than not, I think it is. And more often than not, it's our red lines. It's the thing that we want to hold on to the most, right? It's our plans that we had for our futures. It's our kids. It's our jobs. Things that we worked so hard for. God says, I want that. And this morning we have a chance to respond. We could be like Asaph and his family who follow through and who praise God and offer the thank offering to God. And we can surrender those things to him that he really wants, not the things that he already has. Or we can choose to say, no, God, I'm going to hold on to that. You can have everything else. And live as people who are just gripping onto something that isn't as important as we're making it to be. Are you willing to ask God the question this morning, what do you want from me? This weekend, I was briefly at our district assembly. One of the nights was a great guy that spoke about evangelism and the opportunities that we have to share Christ, and so many of them that we miss, right? But as he was talking, I thought about this question that I was getting ready to preach this morning. About as he was sharing, there's so many people that need Jesus. And yet we come on a Sunday and we haven't brought somebody with us that needs to hear it. We come on a Sunday expecting to get some food, to get filled up so we can go out. And yet we're missing those opportunities as we're out there. And as you're asking God this question this morning, what do you want from me? He might put a person's face in your mind that says, I want you to go and I want you to speak to them. This morning, he might put some of these big world things in your face. The shootings that just happened again. The crash. The hopelessness of our nation. He might bring those things to your mind and says, I want you to do something. Are we willing to follow through on that? Are we willing to answer and say, okay, God, I'm going to go. I'm going to do it. Our church is getting ready to do a trip to Ecuador. Maybe God's putting that on your heart to say, I want you to go. It might not make sense for you to go. You might not see where the money comes from. But God's saying, I want you to go. Are you faithful to do that? Yeah. When you ask God this question, are you willing to hear the answer? This morning we're going to sing a last song. And the song, as we're singing it, it talks about coming to the altar. I've said it a lot that the altar in itself is a piece of wood, right? But as we come to the altar, we surrender and lay those things down. We offer that offering to God. We give those things to him. It's a sacred place. So this morning, if you need to come and you need to kneel and you need to say, okay, God, I'm giving this to you. I'm answering what you want from me. Maybe he wants you to come and he wants you to pray. Do that. Maybe he wants you to stand and sing as loud as you possibly can in front of everybody, because that's what he asks me to do sometimes, and it's weird. But do that. Maybe he's asking you to go in the lobby and call that person that he put in your mind already. that he said he wanted you to minister to. Don't skip out on that. Go do that. People laugh lately because they'll give me something to do. They'll send me an email and ask me for something, and I'll just send it back, and it's done, right? Like, you did that too fast. Like, if I didn't do it now, I was going to forget. So don't forget. Do it now. Whatever God is saying that he wants you from you, whatever God is saying he wants you to do it now. Don't wait on it. Don't put it in your back pocket and think you'll do it later. Respond now. Allow him to speak to you this morning. Let's pray. God, as we come to you this morning, God, I pray that we would come and we would give you the right thing. God, the thing that we have held on to for so long and not wanted to let go of. God, would we release that this morning? God, the way that you want to move in our lives, would we give you freedom to do that? God, will we not live in fear of what that looks like, but will we trust you? And God, after we respond, we know that you are faithful to lead us through all of what that looks like. God, this morning would we come to the altar and give you the thanks and the praise that you deserve. And we pray. Amen.
Overwhelmed by the weight of your sin, Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar, the Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind your regrets and mistakes. Come today, there's no reason to wait. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows and trade them for joy. From the ashes a new life is born. Jesus is calling. He's calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Sing it. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah. Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah. home to Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Come to the Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ.
God, today we recognize you are a wonderful Savior. That you are our rescuer. God, that you are trustworthy. God, that we can put all of our hope in you. God, this morning as we pray, we give you the things that we need to give you. God, I pray that we would be faithful to leave them at the altars. We wouldn't try to pick them back up. We wouldn't fight to have our way in the midst of this. But God, that we would just release those to you this morning. God, we trust that you have a plan in all of this. We thank you for the celebration of today. But God, we pray that it wouldn't just stop here. That we would leave this place and recognize where you're working, where you want us to do. Would we answer the question this morning, God, what do you want from us?
What a Savior, isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen.
Amen. As those finish praying up here, let's stand together. Let's say our benediction together. And we'll let them finish at the altars. And now may all praise be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end.
Real quick before you go, we're also celebrating today a milestone in Cheryl Gosnell's life. She was ordained at our district assembly yesterday, and so we've prepared just a little cake and a little stuff out there as a celebration for her. So wherever you are, Cheryl, go ahead and head out there, and TJ. And then you guys can go by and congratulate her and wish her God's best in her new role. All right? Have a great day. We'll see you.